Now, chapter 8 in my book is called, Is There a God of Love? Because many seekers of truth, once they start to question life and observe life, can see that we do have a lot of violence, a lot of grief on this planet, all the suffering. Thousands of people dying every day through poverty, sickness and disease, and the 35,000 or so children who die through neglect, poverty, violence and disease is enough to make anybody question, is there a God of love? And we have wars and terrorist activities, sickness, disease, everything that will make an inquiring mind question, how can there be a God of love when we have all this violence on this earth? And if we look back through history, we'll see that it is a blood-soaked planet, going back thousands of years. It's always been that way, with violence and wars and fighting between tribes and nations, and people being cruel and unkind to each other. So where does a God of love fit in to this scenario? That was what baffled me to start with. And I wouldn't say that I was an atheist, but I was certainly agnostic for the best part of my early years, until I started to question life and then started to get some of the experiences. But if I was ever going to come up with something positive about finding a God of love and proving to myself that there was a God of love, I certainly didn't know where to look. But one thing I did know, that it wouldn't be where there was violence. And studying spiritual healing and clairvoyance taught me that, that the universe responds to love. So that was my challenge. Was there a God of love? That was my quest, next quest, having proved life after death to be a fact. And a chance happening occurred in 1983, and strangely enough it was in a pub in Norfolk when Patricia and I were on honeymoon, and we were very tired, and I looked out of the window and thought what peace and happiness there was outside, with birds and the trees and blue sky. And I looked back into the room and I could see an egg-shaped orb about the size of a grown man in a vibrating white mist, shaped like an egg, about the size of a 6-foot man. And it came towards me between the tables, and my gaze followed this until it reached me, and it stood in front of me, and I stared at it, and the next thing, it shot into me. And at that moment, I was out there in the universe somewhere. I certainly wasn't in the pub or in my physical body. I became at one with the universe. I was the universe. And even all these years later, it still moves me inside when I think about this. Changed my life forever, my view of the world. And at that instant, I, Brian Sadler, didn't exist. I was consciousness, and my consciousness merged with the whole of the universe. And at that instant, I had an all-knowing. I knew everything there was to know, all knowledge. The meaning and purpose to life, hence the title of the book. And if anybody at that moment could have asked me any question, I could have answered it. I knew the meaning to life. I knew that everything that had consciousness was linked. From the smallest microcosm to the macrocosm, was everything, every planet, every microbe, every living thing was linked in the great web of life. And that the power source of the universe was one ginormous mind. And that mind is nothing but unconditional love, pure unconditional love. And for that brief moment I merged with it, and the inpouring of love that hit me was unbelievable. So much so that it was just absolutely ecstatic. I cannot put into words the amount of love that poured into me and the knowledge at that time. And in an instant I saw the blueprint of the universe. Why it was, how it came to be, and what it will be. And the plan is still unfolding. Every moment of every Earth year, every cosmic year, that plan is still unfolding. And everything that has consciousness is tending to grow towards perfection, and it will eventually merge back with the power source that we call God, the Absolute, the Great Spirit, whatever we want to call it, universal mind, as many of the philosophers call it, because it is one ginormous, loving, intelligent mind, and we are all living in it. The universe is intelligent mind. That came to me in an instant, and I shall never, ever forget it. When it ended, I slowly came back to myself, and there I was sitting at the table with my lovely wife next to me, and the tears had been rolling down my cheeks. My shirt was soaking wet with the tears at that ecstatic moment. And at that moment I knew that a loving God, whatever we wish to call it, exists. Always has done and always will be, long before our universe came into being. There are billions, billions and billions of universes. In a universe, billions of light years with no end. And all that is the part of this universal mind, and we are part of it. And it's a very exciting journey. And our part on Earth is just a very tiny part in a magnificent production that we will play. And that will live with me forever. But I found it very hard after that experience to live again as Brian Sadler in a physical body in such a violent world, as we read in the media, as we see in the media. And I thought, well, why can't people live in peace and be kind and loving to each other? It's the simplest thing in life, to love one another. And wasn't that the message of all the great spiritual masters? Love one another. Treat each other like brothers, spiritual brothers and sisters. That was the message that I got when I had that experience, and that gave me all the proof and evidence that I needed, personal proof that a God of love exists. And I would say to you that if you sincerely seek in life for answers, and I mean sincerely seek with commitment, then you will find. I wanted to know if there was a God of love, and that is what I found. And nothing will ever change my opinion of what I experienced, because that experience was worth more than 1,000,000 books of knowledge, and a loving God exists. That I know. I don't have a faith or belief. I know. Thank you.